My name is Preston Martin. I'm with Landis Technologies, and today we have a special webinar planned. I am going to start with a few introductions before we jump in. We're going to start with Tom. Tom Arbuthnot is somebody that probably doesn't need any introduction in this Teams environment. Tom, hello.
Yeah, hey everybody, thanks for joining. Glad to be on the webinar. Excited to do a live install.
Absolutely. And Tom, for those of you who don't know him, which I'm assuming is very few, the content that he is creating over at Empowering Cloud is a powerful tool to use for information, and certainly look him up at empowering.cloud. It's something that anybody in the team space, whether you're a user or an implementer or partner of any kind, it's very helpful. Thanks for being along, Tom.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your support of what we're doing over at Empowering Cloud as well. We have quite a few thousand people over there now with the content, and we have 33 subject matter experts doing video briefings, all free to access. So if you're in this space and you want to brush up on anything Teams or M365, there should be something there for you.
Absolutely. I'd like to also introduce Clayton. Clayton Martin is from our support department. He actually leads our support department, and he is the technical resource that we have here, the expert on all things technical for today's call. Good morning, Clayton.
Good morning, Preston, Tom. It's good to be here, and good to do a live demo here, and hopefully everything goes well and show everyone how everything works. So it's great.
Just a little bit about the meeting today. We're going to start with a very short overview of the product, so the contact center, and then we're going to jump into the actual install, and Tom is going to actually share his screen and actually do the install live as you're watching. So live demos are always fun, especially when they include technical side of things, and we appreciate you attending here. But I'd like to introduce Paul. Paul Martin is an account executive with Landis, and he's going to share his screen and go over just a brief flyover of the product. So good morning, Paul.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to take a look at the Landis Contact Center solution. Excited to have you. Like Preston mentioned, I'm just going to give a real quick overview. If you're just becoming aware of Landis and the solution, we'll start with just a real brief high level of what this product is, how it fits into your team's environment, some of the problems that it helps solve in a team's environment, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty as to how this integrates. So I'm guessing if you're attending this call, maybe it's slightly more on the technical side, and that's where we're going to spend a lot of our time today, is showing what this looks like to stand up a contact center and how that can be done pretty easily. If you're new to Landis, we are a Microsoft partner, and we've been a partner of Microsoft for quite a number of years, and we've really dedicated ourselves to providing solutions that help integrate into Microsoft and complement their communication platforms. So we've been doing this since the Link, Skype for Business era, and of course now Microsoft Teams. And just focusing on those areas where Teams doesn't quite cover everything that you might like. So Teams is a great communication platform, covers most scenarios, but there are a few areas like contact center, analytics, reporting, live wall boards, those types of things that are just not built into the product natively. And we want to provide solutions that plug in and provide that missing functionality in a very clean and integrated way. You'll notice as we work through the configuration today and walk you through how this integrates, you'll notice a few themes. One thing that is probably at the heart of everything that we design is simplicity. Contact centers in particular get a bad rap for, and rightly so, for how complex and time consuming they can be for your team. And we want this to be more of a plug and play into your team's environment while still giving you the flexibility to dial in the features the way you're looking for. So simplicity is really at the heart of everything we do. You'll also notice the way our products blend in with Teams is very intentional. So we want this to be as clean and integrated into Teams. We don't want your users to feel like they have to adapt to a completely new platform. If they use our products and it just feels like Teams, and they're not even aware of who Landis is, that's perfect. That's what we're going for. And so we'll touch a little bit on that and what that looks like. One thing, just to as we zero in kind of on the contact center, a few things that I just want to call out on what this product is and how it integrates. So first of all, this is what Microsoft refers to as, and Landis is certified as, a extend contact center. Microsoft, you're probably familiar, has those two different categories. They have extend and connected for contact centers. Extend being their more integrated option. That means we're using Microsoft's APIs to deliver all the functionality that contact center provides inside of your Teams tenant without routing calls externally, without taking calls out of your environment and routing them through our service. So that would be more in line with what we would call a connected contact center, where they route calls externally through a third-party contact center provider to provide those features and then route the call back into Teams. Oftentimes there's direct routing requirements. There's more links in the chain with that type of configuration. And so, having everything contained to your Teams tenant not only is beneficial for the setup, which we'll see here in just a moment, but it also makes for a much easier platform to manage as you go along. Just to add some color to that, so you can kind of picture, and we're going to walk through these configuration steps. Tom is going to do this live here in just a moment, but the pieces that will be putting in place and what makes up a Landis contact center. This here, if you can picture it, is your Teams tenant. It doesn't matter to us how call traffic comes into your environment. There's a lot of different scenarios that you may have. There's calling plans, there's direct routing, operator connect. Doesn't matter to us. Call traffic flows into your environment and it's simply assigned to a resource account. Just like you would for a Teams native call queue, you're assigning a resource account for a Landis call queue. That resource account is the interaction object that would then communicate with contact center services in Azure. That is gathering all the analytics and reports and telling the APIs what to do, how to route the call, what music to play, greetings, all of those settings that you would have in place for your contact center. But as you can see here, call traffic will come into your environment and it'll go straight to your agents. That traffic is never leaving the environment. That traffic is never being routed through the Landis side. It stays contained within your tenant. It's simply the communication that's going back and forth between Azure and that resource account. And of course, audio recording. Should you have that enabled, we'll save those recordings to Azure so you can play them back at any time later. So that's the core architecture of Landis. Just to touch briefly, we're going to spend most of the time today walking you through what it looks like to set this up and how easy it is to configure that. Just to call attention to a few other things, what this allows then is delivering those features for your agents and managers, like I mentioned earlier, that are missing from Microsoft Teams. Giving your agents a good experience that is still Teams-centric, allowing them to have those missing features such as CRM integration and call pop, skills-based routing, longest idle type routing, better IVR routing we'll talk about a little bit more on that on the tail end. I think CJ is going to set up an IVR for us and show us some configuration there. And then giving your managers the tools that they're not flying blind in their, as they manage their agents and their contact center. Being able to track live statistics, being able to see live wallboards and coach your agents as they're in the middle of calls. And then, of course, historic reporting analytics, being able to track your performance of your queues and agents over time is really important. Just before I hand it off here, one last thing that I will draw attention towards is just the user interface. I'm jumping out of the slide deck here. This is my actual Teams client. As I mentioned just a moment ago, the user experience and the integration into Teams is really of utmost importance to us. So having it embedded right within the Teams experience for your agents, having a clean UI that matches Teams and gives them, what they're looking for, whether it's an agent, a manager, a supervisor, being able to track statistics for queues and agents, being able to track live stats, what's happening in your contact center, how many people are waiting, do we have the right personnel on hand? Do we need to add more personnel? Just ease of management for your users is really important. And we'll jump into more of the queue configuration and setup and everything. But I just wanted to, if you haven't been familiar with the product, give you just a little overview of what that product accomplishes and what it does. All right, I think we'll leave it there. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the areas that it integrates, from the IVR to the queues and users, but I think we'll leave the overview there and we can kind of get started with the setup of this platform.
All right, sounds good. So we're going to keep this pretty informal, and I'm going to guide Tom here on setting up a pretty basic POC here. And Paul, Preston, you guys can jump in at any time if you have anything to add or anything you want to highlight. So Tom, you ready?
Yeah, I'm already. So I guess to give people context, I've turned up to this call. I've got a tenant. So I've got some calling plans on that tenant. There's nothing special about that tenant. I will share my screen. I assume you want me to.
Go ahead.
There we go.
And if anybody wants to follow along, if you're interested in setting up a proof of concept in your environment, I'm going to be, putting URLs here in the chat. A couple PowerShell commands that we'll need to run. So you're more than welcome to follow along.
There you go. There's the coordinate thrown down. I want somebody else to follow along as we go, see if they can keep up.
All right. So like Todd said, there's a couple users here that are enabled for Teams voice, correct, Tom?
Yep. So we've got, if
right.
we go into TAC, we've got some users, we've got some licenses, so we're all good on that front.
Awesome. All right. So next, our first step really is browsing to cc.landis.cloud, and that's really the portal for setting up Landis Contact Center.
Cool.
So, and the one thing to note here is that you will need to set this up initially with a global admin account. So just make sure you're signed in with a global admin account when you go to that URL.
Yeah.
And
that
then
is best practice. My account is definitely not also a global admin. Let's not judge that now. Do I want to consent on the whole org there?
Well, so it's probably gonna throw an error right here because you're not a part of an organization yet. So first we want to set up a new organization. So click on the new organization link. Yep, right there.
Cool.
And then there's two fields there. The first one is just like the short name or code name for your organization. And then the second is your display name. So you can have spaces in that.
I have dots in that. Is that okay?
Awesome. That's perfectly fine. Then once you're ready,
Cool.
just click submit.
Brilliant. And it's picked out my account there. That looks good.
So right now it's basically setting up your contact center org, setting up your default policies, etc. So this can take a few seconds while you're while it's spinning up, provisioning the organization.
Awesome. So this is not something we've prepped. This is literally somebody could do this on their own time. Is that right?
Absolutely. Anybody can go to this site here and just go ahead and click new organization to set one up.
Yeah, if you want to click that link in chat, you can follow along and create your contact center as Tom does. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's a 30-day full feature trial doing this. So you really have all the features that are available there. We don't restrict anything. So it's pretty great.
Nice.
All right, so now the organization's set up there, and then just go ahead and click the link there to sign in.
Yeah.
And then I'll redirect you to the main sign-in page again, but you'll notice that the current organization is now EC there.
Yeah.
So now if you click sign in with Microsoft, you should be able to you'll get right into the portal.
Yeah. It has new windowed me, but let me buy across. There we go.
It's popping out another window there. That's not quite expected. It should just sign you in.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
I need a browser that's in the right tenant. Hang on.
Okay.
It's pulling me back to my default browser.
Just go to CC. Yeah, there you go. Just copy that out. Hopefully that'll work. Hey, there's always something that throws a couple wrenches and things.
Yeah, this is because Edge is trying to be clever and putting it in my primary browser rather than my let me incognito it.
Yeah, try. There you go. Try incognito. We'll see if we get.
Yeah. Edge sometimes tries to be too smart and takes all your Microsoft sign-ins back to your primary. There we go.
And imagine somebody has multiple tenants they would be members of. That just
Imagine
like a thing.
that. It's not like I've got 10 tenants on the go or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in my environment here, I have like Edge, just production. I have beta and dev, and that way I can have. You can do obviously do different profiles, but the more browsers I can have, the better.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably the easier way to do it in some ways. Okay.
All right,
Awesome,
this
I'm
looks
in.
better. Great, you're in. So that's really, as far as setting up your org, that's the first step. Then second, we have to grant some permissions. That way contact center can interact with teams. So in order to do that, click administration on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
And then go down to settings. And so you'll notice here there's 3 different permissions that you can grant. The first permission there is not an optional permission. That basically allows the base functionality for contact center interact with teams. So go ahead and click the first one there, grant permissions, and it should, just sign with your global admin again.
Yeah.
It'll give you a list of the different permissions that's needed.
Yeah. No, I'm very happy with all of those.
And once that's completed, it'll redirect us back to the same page. You'll notice that, it's granted. The second one is
nice that you
yep.
kind of give this little, it's done.
Exactly. The second one there is for recording. So if you want to enable the recording functionality in Contact Center, you'll want to grant that permission as well. If you're fine with doing that, let's grant that one as well.
Sure. Yeah, so
And
now we're asking for media streams, makes sense.
And then the third one there is really optional. And we're not actually be using this permission here today, but if you wanted to create your resource accounts inside of Landis Contact Center, and that basically what it would be doing is actually creating in teams for you, but you'd use the Landis Contact Center interface to create them, you would need to grant this third permission. So go ahead and grant it. We won't actually be using that functionality here today, but it is an option if you wanted to do that.
Let's go for it.
And we're actually going to be, just for everyone's interest, we actually have a resource account set up, correct, Tom? We have one set up that we're going to be repurposing. So we're actually not going to be creating one today. So there's already one set up, and we'll get to that in a minute here. All right, so we have our permissions granted. So now it can interact with teams. Second thing we'll want to do is just add some users. So obviously use your global admin account to create the organization, but we're going to need to add some agents, maybe some managers. So let's click on configuration there on the left-hand side and click on users.
Yeah.
And you'll notice there that your user that you created your org is already listed there. But let's add a couple more. So select add there on the list.
Yeah.
And there in the menu. And this is going to be searching your enter ID for users. So you just type in a display name, select your user that you want to add. It'll give you a kind of an overview, and then select the user.
I love how native feeling this is. Like it feels like we're in TAC. It's kind of interesting.
That's awesome. And that's really the UI. We tried to make it look and feel like Teams. I mean, that's one of our core features. So we try to make it look like you're just familiar interface.
What's the lockout enabled, CJ?
So lockout enabled is if you want to lock the user out of being able to sign in to contact center for I guess really whatever you would, if there's a reason that you don't want the user to be able to sign in, you could then lock them out.
Okay, interesting.
Um,
Cool. So save that one.
yep, go ahead and save.
Cool. And has it made me, so this is my primary account, has it automatically made me an agent, or am I just a user at that point? I'm not in an agent mode.
Yeah, so there's different roles. You can see there the roles column. By default, if you don't select a role, it's going to be a user role. But since you are the admin, you created the org, you're given the admin role.
Cool.
There's a couple different levels of permissions here in Contact Center. Roles is basically determines what part of the UI that you can access. So this portal is used really by all agents, admins, managers, but you're just restricting. Let's say a manager only needs access to reports; they don't need access to the configuration or administration part. Those menu options will be removed.
Nice.
And then so we have a couple users there added. There's also something called data access policies, which you can very granularly control what CDR records that a user has access to. So for example, you may have different locations for your organization, and you want a manager in organization A only access data that's generated by organization or location A. So you can segment that out to the different locations, different managers.
Yeah, it's quite. I see it quite a lot in big, multinationals where they only want the North America team to see that
Exactly.
data.
Exactly. All right, so we got a couple users there added. The next step here, we'll go ahead and create a queue. So select queues and IVRs on the left-hand side.
Okay. Yep.
And queues. And then select the add option there on the menu. And we're just going to kind of briefly go over some of these options here. If you have more questions, or anybody that's sitting here on the webinar, if you have any more questions on a specific feature, go ahead and post it there in the chat. But we're just going to kind of create a very generic queue here. That way, we won't go into all the details. So for the name, just go ahead and give a generic name for the queue.
Dash is okay.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Description is an optional field, so we'll just leave that empty.
I'll do the classic IT pro.
There we go.
Copy paste.
Just copy paste.
This description.
Sounds good. So let's jump down to alert type.
Sure.
And select teams. So we want to alert the agents in their teams client. So it's just going to look like.
What's my difference here, just so I understand
Sure.
it?
Yeah. So the agent's going to be working out of the Landis Contact Center agent panel. And Toast is where the agents would actually get an alert in the agent panel first. And if they wanted to select to take the call, then they could say, yep, I want to take the call. Then I'll be sent to their Teams client. Typically, what we recommend is that you select Teams here, and it just automatically just sends the call right to their Teams client. It will eliminate a step. So there's two options. The alert timeout is fairly self-explanatory. That's how long the agent will be alerted before going to the next available agent. So for example, let's just put 20 seconds there. And let's jump down to routing type. Let's just select the longest idle. And these are fairly self-explanatory if you're used to, Teams queues here. And then let's jump down. We'll go over some of these options here in a minute, but let's go down to where we select our agents. So let's just search for our agents that we want to add to the queue here. And then you'll also notice that some other users that we didn't add manually as users are going to show up on the list.
Oh yeah, interesting.
If they are, yeah. So if you, so it'll search all the Entra ID here, and if they're not an existing user, it'll automatically add them.
Oh, that's neat. So it will light them up for the usage even if I didn't. Cool.
Exactly. I typically, yeah, it really doesn't matter. We could have just jumped right in here and added our two user. It would automatically add them as users in Contact Center, but I just kind of want to give the full UI view. So All
Cool.
right, so let's jump down to welcome message. There's going to be a sample welcome message that we can select there.
Yeah.
And then also for our whole music, just select the sample whole music.
Cool. And here I could add my own, obviously, if I wanted to, and looks like I've got a sample
Exactly.
player here.
Yeah, so one of the neat thing here, different than the Teams cues, are that these audio prompts are actually global. So you can create an audio prompt and link them to 5 other cues, or you could add them into an IVR. So, and these are also, you can upload your own audio files, or you can just use text to speech as well. So
What I like so far is that I'm not getting a next screen for every single piece of config. It's all in one place, as opposed to the like choose a thing next, choose a thing next.
yeah, so there is a couple tabs at the top, but we're not going to get into that right now. But just so we're not confused, they're under hold music. Maybe switch that welcome message to the
Oh, you want the whole message?
the whole
Yeah,
music.
sorry.
Yeah, there you go,
Yeah.
because it'll keep repeating the same thing over and over.
Good
All
catch,
right.
thanks.
Absolutely. All right, go ahead and scroll down to the bottom
Yeah.
and just select save. I know we're kind of
what's
jumping
my
over.
What's my marketing message? Sorry, I'm gonna pull you
Marketing
off topic here.
messages. Absolutely, that's fine. So marketing messages are messages that you can play while, or the caller will hear while they're waiting in queue. So for example, you could have a whole music, and every 30 seconds it would play like a marketing message. And you can specify different marketing messages. It'll basically play the prompts from top to bottom. So 30 seconds of whole music, play the first marketing message, 30 seconds of whole music, play the second marketing message, and so on.
That's very cool.
So that's another feature that that Landis Contact Center can provide that's not native to Teams. All right, so we have our queue created. And if you're familiar with, a Teams native queues, you create a resource account for any queue or IVR. So we'll just need to we'll need to link at least one resource account to the queue that we have. You can do multiple, but obviously in this instance we're just going to link one.
Yeah. So we would do that with PowerShell, is that right?
Yeah. So just so everybody is
PowerShell.
kind of on the same page where we are, there's a resource account created. We gave it a phone system license. We assigned it a phone number already. So we want to do that beforehand. That way we're not waiting for the licenses and phone numbers provision. So, so we have to, basically next step here on that resource account, we're just going to need to change the application ID on the resource account. So when you, in the Teams Admin Center, when you create a resource account, there's an option to either link it to or assign it to a call queue or auto attendant. Maybe just go ahead and edit that one there. You'll see there on the right hand that the resource account type is call queue. There's 2 options there. So so that is actually setting the app ID on the back end, and that's only editable with PowerShell. So what we're going to do here is it use the default auto attendant app ID on the back end. So what we're going to do is switch that to the Landis Contact Center app ID. That way, when a call comes into Teams, it will associate that call with that resource account because of the DID or the UPN, obviously, and then it'll check what app ID.
This is where we could be bringing in direct routing, we bring in Operator Connect, we could be bringing in calling plans. It's hitting that resource account, and then Teams is saying, oh, for that number, send that over to the Landis cloud service.
Absolutely. Yep, you're exactly right. Yeah. So let's jump over into PowerShell, and we'll come back here and look at this because it'll change here in the Teams Admin Center once we run that PowerShell.
Cool.
So I'm going to go ahead and paste that PowerShell command here in the chat, and the UPN is already in this PowerShell command, so you should just be able to copy and paste.
Brilliant.
And for
I've
anybody
already done connect to Microsoft Teams here, so I'm connected and signed in.
Awesome. So the command is set-cs online application instance. So we're editing the resource account, and then the app ID.
This is where if you are following along online, yours won't be the same command as mine, obviously.
Yeah, the application ID will be the same, but obviously the identity is going to be different because you're going to have your own UPN there. So All right. So that should change the app ID there on that resource account. And then let's just run a git command there on that resource account just to verify the app ID changed, and put
Sure.
that command there in the chat as well. So then
Yeah.
we're going to see, we might have to wait a little bit longer. The app ID is still set to the queue.
Might for a second for replication
Yeah,
time.
sometimes it takes a little bit of time to the app ID changes. In the meantime, what we'll have to do next is just copy the object ID, or basically replicate all these properties of this resource account and just copy and paste them into Landis Contact Center. So the one that we're going to need for sure is the object ID. So go ahead and copy that property out.
Yeah.
And let's jump back to Landis Contact Center.
Here we go.
And select the resource account options on the very left-hand side menu, and then select add. So we're just going to duplicate this resource account inside of Landis Contact Center. So we have the object IDs. Go ahead and paste it down there.
Yeah.
And then the other properties here are kind of just for your reference only, except the name. We have to give it a name, and we have to have the correct object ID. The rest, actually back up. You have to select the interaction object as well. But I typically recommend just copy all the properties over. That way you have it for your reference.
Cool. And is it displayed? That's okay with spaces there?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, that'll work. The interaction object is the queue that we created over here in Landis.
Oh, I see that. Yeah.
And then you can copy the UPN there as well from that PowerShell. And this is more or less to just keep things organized. You can go back and find your resource account. And then the phone number as well. And this doesn't have to be any particular format.
You want to lose the tail, or what's the best practice?
We can remove. Just I typically recommend E164.
Yeah, that was going to annoy me as well. we're all drilled on E164.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, and then phone number type. I think that was a calling plan number, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yep. Awesome. All right, go ahead and click save. That should be good.
Do my IT Pro copy paste.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we got our resource account added in over here in Landis. Let's go back to PowerShell and run that git command one more time and see if the app ID changed. There we go. So you can see there the app ID changed to the 341E. Yep, there we go.
Here we go, people.
Yeah, and so if we jump back to the Teams admin center and edit that resource account, we may have to do a refresh.
Yeah,
potentially. And if we edit that resource account, you'll notice it's empty, and that's what it's supposed to look like. Sometimes it confuses people, but since it's a custom app ID, it should be blank.
Well, that's a good tip.
All right, that is it. So we should be able to call that phone number, and we should get connected to the queue.
I'm going to throw the phone number into the chat. Let's see if anybody beats me to dialing it. I'm going to ring it on my mobile as well.
So if it connects, you should hear that welcome message.
8, 1, 2.
Tom, if you go to your live calls, you might be able to see it pop in as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Contact center. If you go to that tab, I know you're busy with other stuff, but just live calls there. Yep.
Yeah, so I can hear hold music on my. Don't know if you can.
Awesome.
The noise cancelling is probably cancelling it out. There we go. Live calls. I'll let multiple people.
Oh, there's a few people jumped
there
in.
We go.
There we go.
Good. All UK people as well.
There we go. One dropped out. So great. So that's basically setting up the queue, getting a call routed into the Landis contact center is as simple as that. It's really not too difficult.
That's awesome. And the only thing we saved time on there was you pre-created, or we got the calling plan, we assigned it to a resource account. So then that can sometimes take a little bit of replication time, as in, potentially minutes, potentially half an hour. So that kind of is a variable. But yeah, what I love is how smooth this UI is experience. You can almost not tell the difference when you're flipping between the Teams experience and the Landis experience. It's all very clear.
So one of the other things, go ahead.
We are at just over 20 minutes of setup time there for that one, and that is not far from typical. Usually, when we're set up assisting somebody, 25 minutes, something like that. We get to the point where it's set up, and then you go through, answer questions, and that kind of thing. Anyway, go ahead, Clayton. Keep rolling.
So one other thing I thought we could just show briefly here, Tom. Do you have an agent signed in maybe Teams in the web?
Yes. Let me, on my original browser, wherever that was.
To show the agent experience.
Yeah. In fact, I could just sign in here on Teams on the web. You want me to call through against the queue?
Let's get the contact center app installed here for this user, and then we can sign this user in, change the agent status, kind of get him prepped and ready to start taking a call. Actually, maybe to save time, let's just do some of this over in the Landis contact center. So jump over to your contact center tab, and we'll show this more from manager side. So select live status on the left-hand side, and then queue status. So we only have one queue, but we have two different agents here. So in this view, we're seeing what the agent status is, if they're signed into the queue that we created. So go ahead and toggle on your user there that you want to take a call. And you can see there the agent status is set to off. Let's jump over to agent status on the left-hand menu. And this is kind of a global status, so it's not tied to a specific queue. That's why it's on a different dashboard here. So
okay, so that's for the
switch it over to available.
Nice.
So now, if you go to live calls again and call into queue, we should see that that alert for the agent being alerted once the call comes in.
Go through that welcome message first, and then it'll start.
Yeah, it'll just be a few seconds.
I can hear the welcome message going. There we go.
All right, so it looks, it's alerting Tom there. And if we jump over to the Teams tab, we should be able to see an incoming call showing up there.
I can get my sharing to go away. Yep, there we go.
There we go.
I won't answer it because my audio will all go haywire, but yes,
that's fine.
That's awesome.
You also noticed right there with the calls, as a manager, you can also grant those permissions for barge in, listen in, whisper in, giving the manager those coaching capabilities as their agents are taking calls can be very helpful and needed in a lot of environments, as well as picking calls out of queue. If you're a manager that's not necessarily signed into a queue or are responsible for handling calls in a queue, but you notice a VIP call or your agents are falling behind, you can click on live calls that are ringing and pick them, and it'll send it to yourself in Teams. So some nice tools there for the managers.
Nice. There's a question in the chat there about pushing the CLI through to the agent.
Yes. So two things on that. Number one, the Teams toast is going to display the queue that it's coming through. So if an agent is, the handy part for that is if an agent's a member of 3 queues, maybe it's different brands in their company that they're taking calls for, it's going to identify that queue name and so give them that perspective. And then in the agent panel, it will give additional information like the caller ID and more information like that. And you can even do a call pop that's going to reference your CRM or another database in order to display even more context to the agent before they answer that call. So yeah,
Awesome.
good question. Thank you. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, and any questions as we go, keep them coming.
Yep, just jump right in. So yeah, you're just looking at a couple of the reports there. They're automatically just start populating as calls come into the queue. You know, we're not going to go into a lot of details here. There's some options for recording. Obviously, if we set that up, that's some more configuration. But you'll be able to listen to your recordings, do your searches here for those recordings right inside the portal.
That's great. Yeah, it's nice to see how kind of self-service is, and you've got options here to, you know, give this over to individuals to manage via your kind of admin model as well.
Exactly. It's very granular as far as the permissions are concerned.
Yeah, one of the things with those permissions is your agents, while they have the same sign-in and the same interface, if they don't have access to administration, configuration, you know, starting from the bottom of that list, queues and IVRs, they won't even appear on their dashboard. So it's not like it's just grayed out and like, wow, I have limited access. They just won't be able to see what is available to an admin user.
Yeah, I think that's something I hear more and more is like delegating that control to the right country head or receptionist or region or whatever it may be, and getting, because they know what they want, and it's very, you know, usable and accessible interface. It's not all command line and crazy.
Absolutely. Clayton, I think we're going to switch over to your share because we want to take a look at a few more configuration options. And we're at about 17 minutes left, so we're going to do a bit of an expedited, but we want to discuss a few other configuration options.
All right, so I went ahead and shared my screen. There's a couple of different features that I want to highlight that we give more features versus, you know, just native Teams queues. One of them is this wrap-up question set. So this is agent facing. So after an agent's completed with the call, these wrap-up questions will pop up for them. They can answer them, you know, like what was this call about? You know, what category was it, etc. So that's a additional feature that we add on top of a Teams native queues. One new thing that I just want to highlight here, and this is currently opt-in, so this is brand new, hot off the press, is priority level. So if you have a couple different queues and you have the same agents in the two different queues, and you could have like a VP queue where you have your higher priority callers calling into this queue, and your lower priority calls get routed into the secondary queue. Your VP callers are going to get routed or have priority and get routed first before your lower priority queue. And this goes for all queues in your contact center organization. So you can have different priority levels on all your queues if you wanted to. If you have the same priority level on two different queues, they're just going to get routed equally. So that's a brand new feature. It's pretty. A lot of people are requesting that because they have different tiers of support. You know, they have a client that's paying more for a certain level of support. They want to get them routed to an agent faster, that type of thing. Another thing here is skills-based routing. That's an additional feature that we have, where you can assign different skill levels to different agents, and then assign that skill level to a queue, and then it'll route to those agents accordingly.
What's the callback, CJ?
So callback is if a caller is waiting in queue, and you can give this as an option to the caller. If they're waiting in queue, they can press any key that you customize here in the queue settings, and then it will play a little prompt to them, and then it will mark them as requesting a callback. So agents can go back into the report, take a look at the callers that have requested a callback, and then perform a callback. That way the agents or the callers don't have to sit in queue the entire time. There's also another option here to allow the callers to press a key to just leave a voicemail. So for example, I'm sitting in queue, I don't feel like waiting until the queue time's out to leave a voicemail. I'm just gonna press, you know, number 2, I'm gonna leave a voicemail, it's gonna drop, and then hopefully they'll give me a call back whenever they're available. I'm trying to think of some of the other
I'm
ones.
just gonna jump in here, Clayton. I'll point out
Sure.
one other feature there. Teams presence-based routing
Mhm.
allows
Sure.
you to control when calls are sent to your agents. You know, maybe the agent has a calendar reminder or a reminder on their calendar, so it shows them as busy. You can set the system to still route calls to them if they're busy or in a call, or, you know, you can kind of have it set so that no matter what they're doing, they get a call. Simon, I know you had a question there in the chat about different, you know, ringtones. Like Preston mentioned, we're using the team. It's actually Teams notifications that are playing for the agent. However, you do have the control to decide when your agents do and do not get calls. It might come down to what priority queue is it. Is this a high priority queue that it's going to ring them no matter what? And you could have it roll over to a setting like this. But yeah, another option there that makes it nice and blends with Teams.
Yeah, I would just jump off of what Paul was saying there with the Teams presence. We're seeing an issue where people accidentally throw something on their calendar and it's just like just a block time off, and it puts them in a busy state in Teams. And when you're using Teams queues, it actually, if you have presence-based routing on those queues, it won't route calls to those agents just because they threw something on their calendar. So there's an option here that we added where you can just say, you know what, if they're just busy and they're not in a call or in a conference call or in a meeting, you can still route calls to them anyway. So this would kind of override their busy status. Marketing messages, we went over that a little bit. Those are some of the items I wanted to highlight. Anything else, Preston, Paul, that you wanted to add?
Another question in the chat asking about European data servers. Yes, we are, I'm going to say a couple weeks away from a new data center being pushed out in Europe. So one thing to be clear, none of the, you know, like we mentioned with the architecture, none of the call traffic is through US data centers. And the recordings don't have to be through US data centers either. You can already within the product, you can set your audio recording save to locations to be to your own Azure, and kind of that helps alleviate the demand there. We do deploy currently throughout UK and Europe steadily, and including Africa, Middle East. But there are those organizations that have certain requirements for all data, not just call recordings, and we are spinning up EMEA Azure centers to address that. So a couple weeks away on that.
Looks like we have somebody with a question. I'm going to enable a microphone. You're welcome to come on microphone and ask a question. Is it Thabo?
Yeah, it is. So just going back a bit, right? What happens when a person is in an in-person meeting? Right.
So
you say, yeah.
In-person meeting, you mean they are in a conference room, or they're in a meeting on Teams?
They're in a conference room, right? So somebody blocked out time on their calendar and that meeting is actually happening in a conference room.
Yep.
Or they're in a small huddle room. What happens then? Are the calls going to be routed to that person or not?
Well, that is what we recommend using the agent status for. So there's an agent status in addition to your Teams presence that is, and yeah, Clayton can surf over to this here and show us. So there are different statuses you can give. Now you can customize these and say meeting or outbound calling or paperwork, any of those types of things. And these are basically reasons why you're in office and you're signed in everywhere, but you're not taking calls from any queues currently. And so that gives you the ability to shut that down. So yeah,
And
good question.
Does that flow through to reporting, Preston?
Yeah. Then you can also report on what status they were in, so that you can, it's not just this agent wasn't available. No, what reason wasn't this agent available for calls during that time? And so yeah, it's a very simple report because it's not been signed in and out, but you can tell when they were on calls, what their agent status was. If there was other agent statuses, it would show up on the chart as well.
That's really neat. Cool. As far as trials go, we touched on it earlier, like the people need to get in touch with you to do what we've just done, or does it just light up and it works by default when they've got a trial period? How does that work?
Go ahead, Preston.
So when they start a trial, it gives them full access to this for 30 days. So they can configure these things. They can actually, we have organizations that set up a trial and will test in live production because it is a fully functioning version of it. I recommend a little bit of testing, but it's not something that needs to be a large scheduled time. A few hours of setup is all this really takes, and then they're ready to go. But and you can, the other thing I'll say about that is, as you saw, we're setting up a different resource account. So even if you're currently using Teams, have Teams queues set up, all that, you don't have to worry about it messing with your current production by enabling this until you direct that phone number to that resource account associated with this contact center. It's not going to affect your current live production.
One other thing that go ahead, Tom.
I'll say, do you have to be someone super special in twist arms to get CJ, or can CJ help people along with other trials?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's,
yeah.
We do have. We're very giving of our time of those initial setups. So if you're, reaching out to us, you would like to get this plugged in. This kind of serves as a real nice guide for how that can happen. But we're happy to jump on a call and walk you through those steps, just like CJ did here today. That's not a problem. One other thing, we're with the little bit of time we have left here, one other feature that I just wanted to draw attention towards that is really neat is the Landis IVR. We don't really have time to jump into that here today. I'm just going to share my screen real briefly. One of the more powerful features of Landis, I think, is the Landis IVR, and certainly a feature that has come a long way in the last year. We've added a lot of functionality here. This serves as an upgrade to Teams Auto Attendant and allows you to create whatever call flows you want to have happen within your organization. The basic stuff, press 1 for sales, press 2 for service. Of course, it does well at that. However, it really opens up a lot more opportunities for adding, first of all, ease of management. Everything is visual. There's no code editing required. You can add your business hours, holiday schedules, and all of that. But then there's a lot more that we can do here as far as adding things like data dip call routing, where it's going to look at your CRM for a certain piece of information and use that to determine how it routes calls. Interaction with the call. The caller can interact with it, entering their account number and getting ticket statuses, getting account balances. And even then going beyond that to the capabilities of voice input and having this work as more of a voice bot that can help the caller. So caller could call in, we could play a message that says, in a short sentence, tell us why you're calling today. And they could share what they're calling for. And it can, using AI on the back end, it can decipher that and route calls accordingly, or maybe even help the caller, give them possible solutions or read information back to them. So a lot of capabilities. It handles the really basic stuff well, but as you kind of get this plugged in, you can kind of use your imagination. What would be the most ideal setup for that inbound call traffic? And it allows you to build out that scenario. And once again, we're happy to assist with that.
Hey, Paul, just
go ahead.
jumping in here because we're kind of doing a little informal showing here of the IVR. I have a sample IVR I like to show just briefly.
Yeah, go ahead. Take it away.
So I have an IVR here that I created. It'll actually play back your weather. So you can call into this IVR. It'll play a greeting and says, hello, please enter your zip code. And obviously it's probably more for US. I'm not sure if it's globally, but you can enter your zip code, press pound, and it'll actually go out, use a data dip, and trigger a Power Automate flow and get the weather and then play it back to the caller. So this is just a very simple example, which is kind of neat.
You're just showing off now, CJ. That's really cool.
It's fun. You really use your imagination, and you can find something that works.
Do you have the phone number that is the phone number listed there that they can call to get their weather?
Oh yeah, you can call this phone number right here.
There you go. Throw it in the chat and people can get their weather forecast. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's just one example of something that can be done. One last thing I'll just mention, there's a lot of AI capabilities that are currently built into Landis, especially in the IVR, and we're not going to get a time to go into it today. I'm actually just going to throw a link to a YouTube video there in the chat. Tom, this was a session that we did with you not that long ago where we took a deep dive into the Landis IVR and specifically some of the AI capabilities that are there today. Really interesting stuff. We do some live demos there in that session as well. So if you get a chance and you're interested on that side of things, that's something to dive into and watch that video. And again, if you can picture any scenarios in your own organization that might be helpful, reach out to us. We'd be happy to bring those to fruition.
All right. Well, hey, thanks everybody. I wanted to quickly go over some of the commercials here, some pricing. We're very transparent with that. We showed so we have a full suite of products that complement the Microsoft Teams telephony deployments. And so we showed the contact center today. The contact center includes the IVR that we were discussing here. Call recording can be set up in conjunction with contact center or even as a standalone. And then the attendant console is for those users, the front desk, even boss admin sometimes, just users that are answering and transferring calls, a quick and easy UI to do that. And that can be a standalone product as well. It doesn't have to be deployed with it. $75 per user per month is the contact center on the retail end. There is that does include support, including 24-hour-a-day support for any urgent issues that come up. You get access to a ticketing portal to access Clayton anytime, any day. He'll answer you. Don't worry.
That's a bargain.
Those 3 a.m.
Just
calls
for
are
that.
great. You can see the other pricing there as well. The call recording is $5 as an add-on. It's $15 if it's a standalone product. And then that attendant console, it can be for those users. And then there again, can be a standalone. That's the only thing that you need in your environment. We'd be glad to discuss that and demo that product as well. Now, most users we find they have they're setting it up like we did today, going through the general setup. We're very open. We're generous with our time. We give a few hours of time to help with setup. However, if you do want additional services where maybe it's a little quicker and we can assist with the full deployment of the product, including training and all of that kind of thing, we do have some extra services available. Talk to us. We'd be glad to discuss that. Next steps. So, number one, you can start a free 30-day trial of this product using our Getting Started guide, and we will post that in the chat momentarily. You can also reach out to us. We would be happy to set up an appointment with Clayton or one of his team in order to walk you through exactly what Tom did today. We'd be glad to do that. And that gives you the ability to actually test it in your environment. You know, put it through the paces, find out how these different features work and if it would work right for what you're doing, adding those extra features to your team's environment. And then the other option is to see a full demo. We would be glad to either you can join a webinar next week. We have a webinar where we're showing a full new demo, or we'd be glad to do a personal one also. And that gives us the ability to discuss your specific needs, make sure how we can cover them, and make sure that our product is a good fit. Because ultimately, we want the product to bring value to you. And so we're glad to schedule meetings directly. You can email Paul through some links in the chat there. The sales at Landis Technologies comes to both Paul and I, and we'll be able to get back to you and get scheduled if you want a personal meeting, either for setting up or for a demo. So I think with that, is there any last words there? We are a minute over time, so we better soon wrap up here. Gentlemen?
I think we're good. Thanks,
Okay.
Clayton. Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate your help. And
No, I appreciate you guys doing it
Good
live.
demo.
Not everybody's prepared to do things live. So thanks for doing it live, and thanks everybody. I think everybody stuck with us right to the end. So I appreciate everybody's time. Yeah, I'd just say reach out to the guys. I've worked with Landis for a number of years, so I'd definitely be very comfortable saying they're a good company to talk to and work with.
Well, thanks.
All right.
Thanks again, Tom, for joining us. Thanks, Clayton, for your expertise. And we will talk to you soon. Have a great day.
Thank you
Cheers,
all.
all. Have a great day.